That's the way it is. Okay. Recording's in progress. Well, welcome everyone. This has been up there for a while, so, but I want you to read that. This is volunteer month for a whole lot of things and all kinds of things for this month. It's Texas Lake Park month. It's, you know, all kinds of things. But one of the things we want to do is tell you that we appreciate your volunteer hours with Texas Master Naturalist. And I think maybe there is a little volunteer appreciation thing that hopefully you got hold of, just especially for you tonight. Yay! So I want to say thank you for all you're doing, and there really is, you really do make a difference. So please keep up with that and the influence you have on other people. So now we're going to kind of have a little diversion, and Kim Lindenfeld is going to speak to you about a volunteer opportunity, and she has some slides of her own. So we will do that, and then we'll be back to our regular slides on the checkup.
Okay, I think everybody online can now see the presentation. As I was saying, I'm Kim Lindenfeld. I'm from last year's intern class, and I know some of you, but there's a lot of new faces that I haven't met. So have you heard of Friends of Lake Livingston before? Yeah. How many people have heard of Friends of Lake Livingston? So maybe half. So, and I told Sharon I was going to go through this quickly. So yes, I am. There's a volunteer opportunity coming up. Everyone needs volunteer hours, right? Yes. And there is an opportunity April 27th and May 3rd. They're both during the week. One is a Thursday and one is a Wednesday. This is such a neat collaboration that there are two Texas Master Naturalist chapters that work together, plus Master Gardeners in the Livingston area, plus the Texas Corrective TCD, whatever, the Ellis unit at the prison. They grow these beneficial water willows at the prison, and high school students from the area around Lake Livingston all get together. So this is a huge collaboration to make a difference to Lake Livingston. There's a lot of issues there. It's a man-made reservoir, and most reservoirs only have a lifespan of about 100 years, and it's more than 50 years old. So there were issues of silting, fish habitat was declined. There is a lot of bulkhead in the area. So this Friends of Lake Livingston got organized in 2013. Scott Ball, who many of you do know, he's kind of one of the key organizers of it. And he couldn't be here tonight, so he asked me to do this presentation. And some of these pieces are what he put together. This clicker may not but maybe I need to point it there. But I'm happy to talk without the slides. So what happens, the high school students, they're ag students, they take the day off from school. It's a field trip for them. They come to the planting site. This year's planting site is off of Waterwood. The Waterwood Boat Marina is off of Highway 190. It's between Huntsville and Livingston. Volunteers are needed, and I have a volunteer sign-up sheet that we can start around. Sharon, would you just kind of start that over there? And if you're interested, if maybe you think you want to be there, there is a check mark. There's a column for April 27th and a column for May 3rd if you want to be at one or both. We can contact you with additional information. So what happens, these plants that have been propagated at the prison unit, the prisoners are growing the plants. They're picking them up from the prison. They're taking them to the site. The high school students, the ag students are getting in the water, planting these riparian plants that are improving the water quality of Lake Livingston. It makes better fish habitat. It improves the water quality. It prevents the silting. And it's a very beneficial program that extends the life of the reservoir because, like I said, reservoirs typically only have 100 years in their life. So Friends of Lake Livingston is a great way to collaborate with other master naturalists from the Pineywood Lakes. And there's a couple fishing clubs, Texas Parks and Wildlife and Trinity River Authority are all partners in Friends of Lake Livingston. So it's very collaborative. There we are. Look, we're moving along. Yeah, okay, go ahead. So for those of you that are interested in the plants, go a couple more. The American water willow is what was used first, but then it's been expanded to these several additional plants that are on the next slide, I believe. So that is actually helping filter the water and create those fish habitats. So go a couple more slides and see there's the other plants that are being used now in addition to the water willows. And here's a couple examples of the students. So if you volunteer, you're there overseeing the students. So you're not necessarily planting, but if you want to get in the water, water shoes and life vests are provided for all the volunteers. There's a lunch that's included. It's a great way to get lots of volunteer hours. Does anybody need volunteer hours? Of course, I know. So keep going. This could be you. So you could join the Friends of Lake Livingston on one of those planting days. And I'll tell you what, if you're not available April 27th or May 3rd, but you want to be on the list to be contacted for additional volunteer, usually there's planting days in the spring and then another set in the fall. So just put your name on that sheet that's going around and don't check the dates if you want to be on the volunteer list for additional information. So I'm Kim Lindenfeld. My email is on the bottom of that underneath where it says your screen sharing. It's klindenfeld@gmail.com, KLINDENFELD@gmail.com. So thanks. Hope to see some of you there. I know Kristen's going, and keep that sign-up sheet going around. I'll be here if you've got any questions. Okay, we're back. So Misty Gibson, sorry I didn't have a picture of you, Misty. I couldn't find one. Please send me one.
There's one on the member directory.
Okay. Oh, really? I'm so sorry. I missed it. Anyway, I tried to make you a daisy, so there's no. I hope that's okay with you. It's no message there or anything, just. All right, member certifications. Okay, so we have them in different order every time. This is in date certified order. Didn't put that date there, but that's what order it's in. We have Susan Beckmeyer. Congratulations, Susan is online. Yes, good. And Jennifer Steele is here live and in person. Okay. Okay, Jeff Hodges, I didn't get that name in the list in time. And what? Yeah. And Brian Beebe. Ursula Kyle.
Do you have Diana Philpott?
We had Diana Philpott last.
Yeah, I was good. You were good.
Diana Philpott is here to get her pen. She was on the list last month. Okay. Richard Kyle, not here, right? Denise Hall, she's not here.
Sarah Freeman's not in.
Here, yeah, she's after Kathy Herrick. Kathy Herrick here. And here's Sarah Freeman, who's live and in person.
There we go. And you know what? You have
Yes. So we also have Patty Thompson. Patty, I'm sorry, I don't think there's an E on in the Patty. I'm sorry, Patty, if you're watching.
And we have.
So, milestone. 250 hours, Brian Beebe.
And
Then you're like. Is it good? Do you like this picture? Yeah. Stefan? Oh, wow.
500 hours. Bruce Hadley. Bruce Hadley in the house? I don't have a picture of him either. That's not his property, I don't think, but there's Bruce Hadley. Yay. Okay. He did it. Okay. All right. I'm not sure if I'm close enough to the owl. Do you have any feedback, Carolyn? Can they hear me? I keep wandering over here. So, results from the April 1st litter sweep. I know this looks a little weird, but anyway, this is the only picture I got from that because I was totally just doing the thing and didn't get a picture until the very end. So that's the very last little group. But there's a little chart there. The thing I want to point out is that the total weight of the trash we picked up was 53.9 pounds. That's a lot of trash. So I think we did some good. On the south side, there wasn't as much as usual. I don't know how to explain that, except, you know, it very well could be a scout troop or some individuals picked up trash. I mean, that does happen, which is excellent. They were almost disappointed they didn't have more trash. I don't know. Okay, so talking about volunteers.
There is a laser.
Oh, I'm not sure how to use the laser. Oh, okay. Do you see this right here? This is Denise Hall while she was volunteering at Mercer, and a little baby bunny just hopped right up to her. She's actually tickling it under its chin.
Wow.
So I'm sure that you guys can also, you have stuff like that happen, right? You know, a butterfly just like lands on your shoulder or whatever, just you name it. You just never know what's going to happen when you're outside. That's why we do this. Okay, you might be interested in this. Yeah. I went to there was a 20% off coupon if you bought that through their site, but they're sold out. So you can't use the coupon maybe, but on Amazon that is only $8.99 for the book. So some of you have grandkids, whatever. I forgot what I'm trying to do here. Okay, here we go. Let me keep it.
Whenever somebody pops in.
Ah. Okay. So I think this is. So that was just for your information. That was pretty neat that he's got a book for the kids because that's a good way to keep this going. You got to get the youngsters on board. And now I'm not advancing it down. Okay. Let's go. Okay, this slide is up here one more time. This event happens this Saturday, and we have somebody to sit at the booth. However, it's just a fun event and a fun place to go. So I'll put it back up here again in case somebody didn't see it and might want to run out to Visit Texas Wildlife to see what all they've got going on there. You might even be interested in volunteering for them at the shelter. All kinds of animals come in that are wounded and you can help with that, or it's a very interesting place. Stuff comes in all the time. So it's up there one more time for you guys. Oh, so I just stuck this in because I thought that this is kind of something I'd like to point out. When you are volunteering, if you can, and you have something, please wear your Master Naturalist gear. That has, you know, who you are on there, because it's a good talking point when people see you and you're doing something. They're like, well, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And if you have your shirt on it, you can easily explain what you're doing. Gives you a little bit of presence, and you can talk about the chapter and what we do, and people get very interested. So if you can, please wear your shirts and be identified. We are a part of something bigger, and so everything you do reflects, so let's keep that in mind as well. If I don't have your picture, please send it to partwithpres@gmail.com. Would like to put it in the membership directory. And no, Sarah, no, I saw that. We can't send a picture like that. Send a nice picture so that we can use it for the certifications and the directory, etc. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, this is our advanced training highlight. I'll give you a chance to read that. I don't really need to read it to you, but I think it looks very interesting. Bird brains and their complex thinking. Now, they don't do those by Zoom anymore, so you have to go in person if you want to see this presentation. Is that correct, Carolyn? Yeah, that's correct, yeah. Okay, I have a few announcements about the May chapter meeting. Please note, there's a date change. Date change for the May chapter meeting. It is the third Wednesday rather than the second Wednesday. And just because we might as well just go all out, there's a location change also. So South County Community Center on Lake Robbins Drive. So I don't know about you, but getting here was a little bit of a bear. That's going to be nice for me. But anybody have trouble getting here with traffic? Anybody? No? Okay. I mean, since this is happening, because of this venue being taken that night, I would welcome any feedback about this venue coming up. Maybe we could use it again in the future. So we will also put this in the bulletin and all that, but I want you to see that. Gerald Geiser. You see that since you're going to be speaking. You good with that? Okay. So tonight's presentation, Craig Hensley, and he's going to be up in a moment and speak to you about his thing. And also tomorrow, April 13th, we're going to do the BioBlitz at George Mitchell Nature Preserve. I believe there was it in this Monday's bulletin, this past bulletin, the exact location? Well, it's Rob Fleming Recreation Center is the parking lot, paved parking lot where we're going to meet. And that address either was in last Monday's bulletin or it will be, well, no, can't be Monday, so it's too late. So if you need the address and you don't know how to look that up, please see me or Carolyn or somebody after, and we'll get you that address. It's on the calendar. You can look at that way, okay? So that's all I have. So I will hand it over to Craig Hensley. Everybody will give him a round of applause.
Tonight. Hopefully the people on the owl can see me or hear me. Give us a signal if you can't. Am I there all right? Okay, good. Since I'll have to hit, it looks like I might have to hit the enter button every time. Because that's the way it works. Okay. We'll make it work. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to come out and visit with you all tonight. My name is Craig Hensley. I'm one of two Texas Nature Trackers biologists. I've worked for TPWD a little over 12 years now in various capacities. And I've been in this job about 4 years, coming on 4 years. The older I get, the more it all blends together, and I can't figure these things out. But I also want to introduce to you our newest Texas Nature Trackers biologist who literally joined us last week. And this is Wendy Anderson. And needless to say, I'm thrilled that she's here, and you can already tell she's way better at technology than I am. So thank you for being here. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about City Nature Challenge. We're going to talk about iNaturalist, both the app and the web page. We're also going to talk about why iNaturalist is of value to Texas Parks and Wildlife. And then is there anybody here going to be joining us for the Bio Blitz tomorrow? Okay, a few people, very good. I should tell you that I went and looked on, at that forest, at that preserve, and there was no project for that preserve, very few iNaturalist observations there, so everything we document tomorrow will be brand new to the iNaturalist project that we created. So you'll be adding some good data for the through iNaturalist. So let's see if we get this work. Nope, I'm going to cooperate. There we go. So we work for within the Wildlife Diversity Program with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And our little team is called the Community Stewardship and Engagement. It's actually now a program. My boss and Wendy's boss is Michelle Haggerty, who's your boss from the Texas Parks and Wildlife standpoint in terms of running the Texas National Naturalist Program. We also have a Wildlife Diversity Outreach Specialist, which is a really fancy title for somebody that does a lot of our PR stuff. And he's brand new. He's joining us May 1st, right? Yeah, literally on May 1st. So we're going to get him on board here very soon. So it's a pretty small program, but we literally travel the state trying to engage people in community science, get them involved, and we use iNaturalist as kind of the hook to try to get them outdoors, documenting the flora and fauna of the state of Texas. And it's through some of that data that we're able to learn a lot more about the flora and fauna of Texas. And so basically we reach out to anybody across the state of Texas, could be a community or a citizen scientist, and we're trying to use the iNaturalist tool, as I mentioned. We have projects that we're going to show you in a minute where we funnel some of that information that comes through iNaturalist. And the idea is to get it out to the research and conservation community, the biologists, get it out to a lot of places where they can actually use that data. And the thing that I like to emphasize is that every county most counties only have one Texas Parks and Wildlife. "15 minutes later, everything went just fine. They got to do their business meeting. You know. There we go. Okay, that's and then my very first PowerPoint or online presentation when COVID hit, I had a lady in the audience that had her camera on, and she stood up in the camera, and fortunately she had undergarments on, but she took off her shirt. What? Became shirts, and I didn't know it. I just didn't know it. And people online were just going, it was quite exciting. Like I said, she had undergarments on, so that was my introduction to online presentation. Okay. There we go. Okay. Just don't move. All right. So Herps of Texas is one of our biggest projects because there isn't a lot of effort out there by the general public looking for herps, reptiles and amphibians. So it's a very valuable program that we have. We've got one on bees and wasps that we are part of. And then down at the bottom, you'll notice there's a Texas Whooper Watch, which is still used to be a paper project. Now it's an online project. We're actually really interested in tracking the whooping cranes that are actually migrating through Texas on their way to the Gulf Coast. And then another project that is taking on more significance is actually the Texas Eagle Nest project. Years ago, when the bird was an endangered species, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did flyovers looking for nests. They've stopped that now since it's been delisted. There's we know that they're doing fairly well in Texas, and one of the hot spots is actually Lake Livingston. There's a lady around here, I don't think she's in the audience tonight, but people know her as the Eagle Lady that talks about eagles. I can't remember exactly where she lives. She's a master naturalist for somebody's chapter. There.
He's a tomboy. Yeah, he does tomboy.
I don't know if that's her, that name doesn't seem around. Is she? Okay. Well, one of the challenges of being able, again, this goes back to that lack of information. It's hard to know how things are doing if we don't get information. And we know, based on my conversations, that there are a lot of eagle nests around Lake Livingston, but a lot of them are on private land, and people are very protective of their eagle nests if they happen to have one. But here's the thing, if we don't know that they're there, how can we know how they're doing? So it's really a big challenge to try to encourage people to share that information where we can, the nice thing about this project is we can get that information into iNaturalist, and the site is actually protected from public view. So that we can still gather that data, protect the location information, and still have a better shot of knowing what's going on with bald eagles in Texas. And right now with that avian disease that's killing birds all over the country, it becomes very important because the bald eagle is highly susceptible to it. And in fact, there's already been there's been several eagles across the country that have been found with it that have died. So that kind of information becomes really valuable. So if you want to talk about that more, if you happen to know where an eagle nest is and want to talk with me, our emails are at the end of the presentation. But we have all of these programs that we're getting all kinds of stuff, information in. We take those projects and we get a lot of data. Not all of that data do we need, but we know that the white-tailed deer seems to be doing okay. We know that the northern cardinal seems to be doing okay. The fox squirrel seems to be doing okay. So there's lots of photographs of those. But there are photographs of rare and unusual species that we want to find that information on, and they're referred to as species of greatest conservation need. So we actually go through our project and curate them, find those unusual organisms and get them eventually into what's called the Texas Natural Diversity Database. And that is just a large database that takes all of that unusual record data of both plant communities and individual species and plots it so that if, for example, TxDOT is doing some road construction project, they have, I think they're required by law, actually go to the Texas Natural Diversity Database and say, okay, well, here's where our project is. Is there anything here we need to be concerned about? So this is a way to protect, but then also mitigate when possible when those kind of things are ongoing. So what is an FGCN? It's a species, it is a native plant or animal that's declining or rare and in need of some kind of intervention to try to prevent it from being listed as either a state or a federal threatened or endangered species. And one of the things that we got to get in our head is agencies like TPWD and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are not actually trying to add everything to the endangered species list. Our goal is to get everything off the endangered species list, right? But there's a public conception out or misperception out there that somehow we're going to keep adding things to be more rare and endangered, so you can't do anything on your land. And we've actually had successes. The bald eagle is a classic example of a success, right? Now, some species like the whooping crane will probably never come off of it. There's only a couple of hundred of them or whatever. I mean, literally, they've been working on that bird for as long as I've been alive. And that number is slow to grow. Some species just have never been very abundant, at least in our human knowledge of history. So that's just the way it goes. But other species, like in our neck of the woods, we have the golden cheek warbler. And there's always a debate about the golden cheek warbler status. They just delisted the black-capped vireo, another bird of the Texas Hill Country, another success story. So these things can happen. So again, the goal is to prevent the listing of these species. These are a few examples of the species that are out there. The whooping crane obviously is a good one. The Texas horned lizard is one. And there are efforts right now in the Texas horned lizard to try to raise enough babies in captivity to start getting them back on that landscape in places where they used to exist. So that's happening with in combination with zoos. The American bumblebee is actually a species of greatest conservation need because bees and we don't know how much is happening here in North America, but certainly in other parts of the world, pollinators are declining. And if any of you like to actually eat fruit, and a lot of vegetables, pollinators seem to be kind of important. Okay, so thus we need to know information. The Houston toad is on that list. The loggerhead shrike, a bird that we're doing research on in Round Rock, is a bird that's declining. In parts of Canada, it's an endangered species. In many of the states in the United States, it's now a rare species that used to be a very common species. So, and a lot of reasons for that. So, we could talk about that all night long, but we don't do that. But we do have right now somewhere around 1,300 species on the list. And and that's a lot of, that's a lot. That's a lot of animals and plants. But just to kind of give you an idea, this is just in 3 FYs, 20, 21, 22. You can see that through our iNaturalist projects, we've gotten over 35,000, almost 36,000 observations of SGCN species in these different projects. Overall, since we started using iNaturalist to track species, we've gotten close to 83,000 species records, pieces of information that allow us to know more about what is going on out there. So it's valuable. Another example of what iNaturalist can do, you can see the range map. This is a publication on the pronghorn distribution in Texas. The top left map is from the Panhandle. The other one is obviously the Big Bend region. And those green areas are where the pronghorns are known from. But if you look on the iNaturalist records on the map on the left, there's actually some areas where they've been documented by iNaturalist users that they have not been documented through our standard research efforts. So it shows you can gain more information that way. Am I talking way too loud? Okay. Like I'm screaming. So, what did I do? Okay, there we go. So one of the events that we help host each year is the City Nature Challenge. You can see that it covers a lot of the state. These are 15 different metro areas that participate, including the Houston area. And it's coming up Friday, April 28th through Monday, May 1st. This is an event that's just a kind of a friendly competition that started years ago in California, and it spread to becoming a global event. And for us, it's an opportunity for that 4-day period to encourage people to get outside and take pictures or record sounds and document that through iNaturalist. So just to kind of, let's see if this will even play. This will be our next big challenge. What's your fingers?
Look around here. Our cities are filled with wildlife. We need to understand now more than ever. We can't fully protect nature on this planet without studying what's living in our cities. So here's how you can help by doing your part in joining the 2023 City Nature Challenge. Come together with over 400 cities worldwide and see how many wildlife observations we can gather. Every photo or audio recording you submit helps scientists better understand the biodiversity of our cities and further vital research around the globe. How does it work? It's simple. Using cameras and smartphones, tens of thousands of people all over the world take pictures or record sounds of wildlife in their hometowns during the same period, and thereby build an international database of urban nature that helps scientists and naturalists understand life in our cities and work to make them better places for humans and wildlife to live. Visit citynaturechallenge.org to see if your city is taking part between April 28th and May 1st. Then get outside and take pictures of wild plants and animals and upload them to our global database using the iNaturalist app or your city's preferred platform. Watch as experts all over the world help identify your observations. So put your nature eyes on and join the 2023 City Nature Challenge. Explore the nature in your neighborhood and help change the world, one observation at a time.
So hopefully those of you online could hear that. I know the volume is down a little bit. So just to kind of, that's the promotional video off from the actual organizers of iNaturalist out in California. Last year we had those 15 metro areas that participated. We had almost 150,000 observations between all the cities. You can see that lower graph is a ranking. Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston Galveston are always competing for who's first or second. And this is globally, by the way, yes.
This,
Yeah.
So if you're. You can't do it, right?
Sure you can. So if you look at that, I'm gonna show you I'm gonna show you a map that shows Conroe is part of it. It's part of the Houston Galveston area. But here's, no, you can. So anybody in Texas can, there's actually a project that's just a joint project, a project for all Texans. It's on our website, under Get Involved. And so anybody can join that and submit, even if you're out in Big Bend, you could be adding observations. But these, the county areas are pretty big. San Antonio has added so many counties that they're almost to the Gulf Coast now. They're slowly trying to take over the state. Okay? And that's, of course, the one I'm in, so I'm like, okay. So far, it is not helping us get to #1 in the state, however. We can't even get past Austin. But you can see Houston ranked #2 right there in terms of the number of observations, which is pretty good. And that's the top 1% globally. Now, keep in mind that unfortunately for some cities around the globe, it's winter time. So some of them don't get many because it's the wrong season. So here is last year, all these little dots are where observations were made in the Houston Galveston area. And if you go to the top of that map, I'll zoom in, there's Conroe right here. And you can see there's very few observations in the Conroe area. So guess what that means? It's an invitation for you all to help Houston Galveston beat Dallas. There's a lot of green space around here that you could make observations. And then here's the cool thing. You don't have to go out to some rare natural area and look for rare. This is for anything. They prefer wild species as opposed to your cat, you know, or that kind of thing. But you can see there's a lot of room for improvement right there on that map. So I encourage all of you as a chapter and get your friends and your family and go out, even if you go out for half a day. But one of the things I just read, they said, you know, if every master naturalist did 10 observations, there'd be a whole lot more observations on this map, right?
Craig?
Yes.
The previous slide,
Yes.
is the whole of Montgomery County included?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so what they generally do is just pick an entire county and add it to it. So, so it's a pretty massive area, obviously. And what's also cool, you guys actually have part of the ocean. So, you know, if you're a diver, who knows, maybe you can go out there. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of show you that you absolutely are part of the Houston Galveston area. And maybe you don't want to be, I don't know, but you are in for this. So it seems like Houston Galveston is getting very close to you. So here is what the project looks like for the Houston Galveston area. One of the things is you do not have to join the project to participate. So when you go out, this is what's known as a collection project. So if you live in one of those counties and you go out and take a picture of something on iNaturalist and upload it, it's automatically going to go into that project during that 4-day period. Okay, it's that easy. I mean, it really is. You don't have to do anything special other than get out and use iNaturalist. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So it's not hard. It's not hard at all. And as of yesterday, there were 16 days, 7 hours, 31 minutes, and 4 seconds until it starts. So anyway, so let's talk iNaturalist now. We're going to introduce iNaturalist and go through as much as we can here. And by the way, when it gets to be quitting time, give me 5 minutes because I know we kind of got all goofed up today. So iNaturalist is an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information to help each other learn about nature. Pretty straightforward. They had 2 goals when they invented this thing. One was to connect people to nature, and the second one was to generate scientifically valuable biodiversity data of those people that were out in nature. And if you recall, when this actually started, it was about that same time we all got our cell phones with cameras, and Facebook was getting to be a big deal, and we would go out and we'd eat dinner, and we'd go take a picture of dinner and post it. And then we go buy some new shoes and we do the same thing. And all of a sudden we were inviting everybody into our personal lives, right? So somebody had a clever idea, well, if you're doing that for all this other stuff, why not include nature? That's my story anyway, about how it might have started. So why iNaturalist? First of all, it emphasizes community engagement. It's available to anyone, anywhere in the world. It's an open science platform, so that means you can actually go in and look at the data on your own. You don't have to have a special password other than your own personal password. The data is out there for everybody to see. Now, that said, let me emphasize though, let's say you want to participate, but you don't necessarily want to show the exact location of some of your more unusual things, maybe on your property or whatever. You can still share the images or the sounds and protect the actual location data. Okay, so you can still use it and protect the data, and that's important for some people. It focuses on peer-to-peer collaboration, so it's like a community of people sharing what they find out in nature, and those people talk to each other. It's pretty neat how it works. If you put something up there and you can't figure out what it is, there may be somebody on iNaturalist that will help you identify it. It might ask, and there are some of those folks out there, such big iNaturalist users, they'll have, well, it's not this, but it's this, and here's why. They'll send you a link to research, whatever it is. I mean, it's really cool. So if you're really into nature, and I assume all of you are such master naturalists, it's a really neat platform, not only to contribute, but for you to learn about what's around you. And I've always said, if I had had this when I was a kid, oh my God, I would know so much more. Yes.
So since Seek and
Yes.
iNaturalist talk to each other.
Right.
If I come up with something that I don't know what it is, I go to Seek and it tells me what it is. And then from there, at the bottom, it'll post it directly to iNaturalist.
Yes. So what she, right. So what she's talking about is another app was actually designed for kids under the age of 13 because there's no personal data had to be shared. And what it does is you literally point the camera at it and it will try to identify what it is before you ever take the picture. The thing with the Seek app is if you can do that all day long, and it's been gamified, so you can win little, online prizes and all that kind of stuff. For thinking about kids, but I also find that a lot of older people really like it better than iNaturalist, and in fact, it's been downloaded many more times, over 10 million times versus I think only about 3 million times on iNaturalist globally. So a lot of people like it. If you don't have an iNaturalist account, you can still use it, but the data that you're collecting or putting down is not going to go into iNaturalist unless you have an iNaturalist account. It'll be on your phone. That's it. The other thing to keep in mind, and I'll say this more than once tonight, remember that iNaturalist is giving you suggestions as to what is being identified. Okay, it is not necessarily saying 100% every time this is exactly what it is. Okay, and there's some people that don't get that. They think it's infallible. Okay, no, it's not infallible. Yes, sir.
eBird, are you referencing eBird entries or how the bird being identified?
So when you use iNaturalist, it's using artificial intelligence to look at the photograph, right? Or it doesn't, with sounds, you can record sounds now on iNaturalist, but it doesn't identify it. The AI isn't trained up, I guess, to do song identification. So it relies on the community of other iNaturalist users. eBird, the difference, eBird is the biggest data collection, online data collection in the world. It's getting well over, oh my God, is it 100 million records a year? I think some humongous number. So here's the difference. Now, first of all, they both are valuable. Both are extremely valuable. But the one difference is that, and this is how I defend iNaturalist when it comes to birds, iNaturalist requires some kind of physical evidence of the presence of that bird. eBird relies on the accuracy of the individual identifying the bird without any record of any proof that that's what they're looking at. So that's a shortcoming, but as a birder, I'm not gonna go out there and go, yeah, I saw this thing and I'm gonna put it on eBird when I didn't have a clue what it is, because, you know, I've got some sort of self-respect that I don't want to be making up stuff, right? And on eBird, they do have people that monitor that. And the first time I ever got an email from the I call him the minder, challenging one of my identifications, I literally wrote back and I said, why would I put it on there if that's not what it was? I was really offended. And fortunately, he was very nice response. But they do have people that are doing that, so, but not all of us have a camera that's got a lens that sticks out to here that take a picture of every bird, right? So that's the limitation. A few do, obviously, it sounds like. But they're both super valuable. And but I will say down here, you can see that only 10% of the birds that are being documented are coming from iNaturalist, and again, most of them are coming from eBird. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So Merlin is pretty good. I've started using it a lot, but it's not perfect either. For example, one of the birds in where I live is the black-crested titmouse. It almost always identifies it as a northern cardinal. It rarely pulls it up as a titmouse. So that just shows you that it's not perfect either. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Maybe I'm standing too close to this worship. I don't know. Anyway, so Merlin and eBird do not talk to iNaturalist and vice versa. Very different platforms. I'm not a computer geekoid, so I don't understand all that language stuff, but the data is still being used. It just doesn't cross.
Now what? I mean.
Right? Let me go over here. Is that better? There's gotta be something over there. Well, no, that reverberated too. Yeah, let's do that. I think we'll get done with this about 10 o'clock tonight. Somebody gavelled it into. Is that? Hello? Yeah, is that better? Can you still hear me okay? Okay, no feedback. Okay, there you go. Wow, this is amazing. Anyway, getting back to that, so eBird is very, very valuable. Merlin is a great app to start to learn bird calls. Just keep in mind the limitations. That's important to remember. But you can also see that in the last 3 years, the bulk of observations of everything outside of birds is coming from iNaturalist observations. Okay, so again, people all over the world, scientists all over the world are realizing how valuable this information actually is. Just keep that in mind. And so who's using the data? Book authors are using it. I don't know if you've heard of Heather Holm. She's got all these great books like Wasps of Eastern North America and Bees and all of her. So she's got all these pictures of wasps, but she wanted to actually figure out what they feed on, flowers they nectar on. She looked at iNaturalist records and was able to identify the species of the wildflowers to be able to generate a list of the preferred foods of the different species of wasps. So it's kind of an odd, I don't know that I would have thought of that, but a great way to do that. There have been more than 3,000, well, probably well more than 3,000 peer-reviewed scientific articles using iNaturalist and citizen science data. And then state and local agencies are using it all the time now. You had your hand up.
Yeah, so you're out looking at an insect or a plant. What are you using to even start to try to identify it?
So, well, field guide, but if you're using iNaturalist, you let them suggest an identification.
By taking a picture of it?
Taking a picture, it will give you a suggestion. It will give you kind of and we'll go through this.
Okay.
It'll give you a generic suggestion and then some more specific suggestions. But we'll talk about that. The AI on that artificial intelligence is amazing. It really is amazing, even though it's not 100%. So just to kind of give you an idea, here are some of the ways that the different states that are actually using this information. All over the country again are using iNaturalist. Here in Texas, you can see as of recently, somehow that. Okay, we'll make it. Over 7,000 or 7 million observations just in Texas. Okay, globally now it's over 130 million observations. So a lot of observations going on. Okay. And just to kind of give you an idea, with the herps of Texas, we've had over 5,000 records of these little critters added to the Texas Natural Diversity Database, which is awesome. And then a few other things. Literally just.
What, feedback?
No.
Long,
Yeah.
okay, let's see those. Got it. Is it the wrong picture or what?
No, there's going to be a different one for the skin.
I don't think.
Pardon, hang on.
Oh, okay, is that, no one.
So here, yeah. This was not meant to be.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna make do with what is that saying? Dance with the one who brung you or whatever. Okay. You know, when you get into being an interpreter, you know, teaching people, they tell you that you have to be really flexible. Guess what? Here we go. All right, so combining research with community science, research goals can be attained that can't be attained otherwise. And so one example of that is the eastern spotted skunk. Some research that was done on them a few years ago. These are pretty small skunks. They're easily hidden, so they're not found very often. Some researchers ended up putting out a whole bunch of camera traps, which game cameras, track plates, live traps, trying to get records in 10 different counties they selected. They had 8,000 device nights, and they got a grand total of 12 detections in 4 counties. That's great, but that's not a lot of data, right? So at the same time, they put out a wanted poster for this guy, and they created an iNaturalist project. They ended up with 24 confirmed eastern spotted skunk sightings off of iNaturalist project in 21 counties, including new county records. So again, the power of community science and add a lot more information and better our understanding of what's going on out there.
Yes, a question?
Yes. Yes,
24 confirmed.
right.
Meaning that they were like 60 odd, it was like.
Hard to tell. Eastern and western spotted skunks look very similar. And if the photo quality wasn't very good, they couldn't probably put a positive ID on, an absolute positive ID. Okay.
The distinction that iNaturalist makes.
Well, so iNaturalist gives you suggestions. And then you have to kind of decide if they're ultimately if they're correct. You have to either take their word for it or actually know. Okay. So they're never going to sit there and go, this is exactly what it is. There's no way you can dispute it. They're going to give you a best suggestion and then several more choices.
Do you make a decision about
Yes.
what you think you saw?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
the program doesn't do that, you do that.
We ultimately, we make the choice of which species, if we're going to choose a species, what species it is.
Okay.
So like with some trees, if you know your trees and you go out and start taking pictures of trees, chances are, if it identifies it correctly, you're gonna go, oh yeah, of course, that's a red button. Okay, but again, it's all about choices. It's not about definitively 100% going, that's exactly what it is. A lot of times it's absolutely correct. But keep in mind, it's a suggestion. Okay, so there's still value in buying field guides, is what I'm telling you. Okay. All right, so I was watching a presentation last winter in the small at the commission meeting, and the small game biologist came on and said, hey, we're going to try to figure out if we can expand squirrel hunting opportunities in Texas. And so one of the maps you first pulled up were maps of the distribution based on iNaturalist records. Again, another use of that. When we had Winter Storm Uri a couple of years ago, we were getting all kinds of reports of animals dying. We stood up a project, we got over 3,000 observations on that. So that's another example of how we can collect data in very short order. That was a pretty tragic event for a lot of things. And then, of course, iNaturalist can also be used for cities and planners of recreation areas. So, for example, tomorrow, where we're going tomorrow, there are literally only a handful of iNaturalist records at that preserve. We're going to add maybe 100 or 200 more observations, maybe 300 more. That's going to give a lot more information. Not only is it going to say, here's what's there, it's also going to be show land planners or managers that people are actually using the facility. So they can say, hey, we're not going to sell it off for a development or whatever. It can be very, very valuable. So how it works is, first of all, you got to create an account. Has everybody created an account that's going to use it? Okay, very good. So you got to create the account. You got to have evidence of what you saw, and that's a photo or a sound recording. What you saw, so this is where the AI comes in, the artificial intelligence. It's going to give you suggestions. You make a selection based on what you know. And even if you don't know for sure, you can say it's a plant. And we can tell the difference between a plant and an animal for the most part, right? So you can start there. And then when you saw it, the nice thing about our phones is that it's going to go ahead and record the date and the time. So that's taken care of. And then lastly, where it's been seen. And that for us is very, very important, because we want to know, it doesn't do us any good if somebody goes, hey, I saw a Texas horned lizard, but I'm not going to actually tell you where it is.
Well.
Okay, because it could be anywhere, right? So in order to manage for a species, you got to know the locations of where those species are actually found. It also does, it would be like going, oh, I put one on iNaturalist, but I'm going to tell you where it is. You just will not even put it there. For our purposes, right? For you, great. But for, if you're going to contribute more understanding and knowledge, it doesn't do as much good. So this is what it's going to look like when you take a picture or you record a sound, you're creating a digital voucher. And that's what all those little dots are. And one of the rules of iNaturalist is it tells you where things are, not where things aren't. Right? You can't take a picture and go, see, there's no Texas horned lizard in this picture. Right? You can't go on the reverse. The other thing is, it's not going to tell you how many are there. When you use eBird, you know, we might say, I saw 35 cardinals today. But you're not going to get a picture of all 35 cardinals, most likely. This isn't going to do the same thing either. So there are limitations. So, of course, creating an account. So everybody's created an account, right? We can skip these. So let's skip these. And move it along here a little bit. So let's take a look at the app. So when you open the app, this is what it's going to look like on your phone. The iPhone is going to be on the left, the Android on the right, through all of these slides that I'm going to show you. So if you want to take or document something, you're going to click on the camera on the iPhone, you're going to click on the green circle with the plus sign on the Android, and you get 4 choices. Now, I'm going to say 4 choices, but if you have an Android, you get 5 at the bottom. One of them is edit photo. Okay, on the Android, you can actually edit your photo in iNaturalist. You can't do that with the iPhone. Okay, that's a limitation on the iPhone. So you have 4 choices. You can use the camera through iNaturalist. You can go to your camera roll and pull up photographs. Another thing to remember about that, that means any photograph that you took in the past on your phone of something in nature, you can add it to iNaturalist whenever you want to. Okay, especially if it has the location data with it. And then you can record sound now. A year ago, you could not record sound on an iPhone. You had to use an outside app and then draw it in. Or you could even document something with no photo record. Yes, sir.
Great, can I add, as far as iPhone,
Yes,
you were saying you couldn't edit the photograph, you can actually go in your camera roll, edit the photograph, you have to zoom in or something. Save it there,
Then
and
add
then
it.
go back and take
we're
it
good.
off your camera.
right. And we're going to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I do when I need to do that. That's exactly right. So yeah, you can do it, but there's a different way to do it. So let's start with the camera roll. So if I click on camera roll, it's going to go take me to all my photographs. I go ahead and I select a photograph that I want to upload. Remember, you're going to do this one species at a time, okay, for an individual observation here. So you're going to go ahead and do that. You're going to hit add. It's going to load that picture up there in the top. If you have multiple pictures of that particular organism, you can click on that box and go right back and select another photograph. Same process. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of that until we get to the actual taking a photograph. So we're going to go now to record the sound. When you open that up, it looks like this. Click on the microphone, it starts recording. I always say give it at least 15 seconds because here's the rule in nature. One of the rules of nature that we may not think that are out there. Two things: when you're birding, never point at a bird because as soon as you do, what's it do? It goes away. And also when you turn on the recording device, what does the bird do? Stop singing, right? So just be patient. The other thing is, if you're out in the morning chorus, like we will be tomorrow morning, we may have 6 or 8 species of birds singing at the same time. So you're just going to record them all, and then you're going to go, I don't know what the 4th bird in my recording is, and I'm going to put a note in there. I want to know what the 4th one is. So if somebody's reviewing that, then they'll know, what bird you're particularly interested in. So at least 15 seconds. When you're done, just hit save recording. And then this is what you're going to get on your phone. You'll notice that there's no photograph because the artificial intelligence for sound does not exist for iNaturalist on the phone. Okay, so it's not going to do that like it is a photo. So it's not going to give you choices. You have to type something in there. If you don't know what it is, but you're pretty sure it's a bird, start typing bird and then choose bird. And at least that puts a placeholder there. So somebody that's into bird sounds on iNaturalist will see that and go, oh, I'll help them identify that. If you leave it blank, I'm not sure, some people will just ignore it, right? And you don't want that. And then if you do know what it is, you go ahead and type in there what it is. And that particular one I knew was a cardinal. So I went ahead and identified that and uploaded it. Okay. And then just so that you know, after you share it, that's the symbol you're going to get for that observation. You won't get a picture of the cardinal, you get a little symbol for that you have a sound right there. Now we go to the camera. So we go ahead and select on camera. This is kind of leads back to what he just said about the editing on an iPhone. So if I'm going to be photographing little insects on flowers, a lot of times I'll just use my regular camera on my phone. And then I'll go to the picture in my folder, edit that, and then I'll upload it to iNaturalist. Does that make sense? So if I'm using my iPhone and I'm photographing something I know that I'm going to want to make larger, but I can't get any closer, I'm going to take the picture using my regular camera on my phone, not in iNaturalist, but my regular camera. Then I'll go to the image in my, like he was saying, then edit that, and then upload it to iNaturalist through that select photo from your phone.
What if you are using a regular camera? You take the picture, you take just a picture with your iPhone, so it documents date, place. Can you then take that, bring it in and use that picture?
You could, yeah. I mean, like on the back of your camera, are you talking about?
And just download the picture, edit it, and then.
Yeah, then you can upload it, yeah. So a lot of the newer phones or the newer cameras now, like we use a P950 Nikon, and it has an app on your phone that you sync the photograph to the camera directly. and it will take all the information and put it on there, then you can actually take that photograph and directly upload it to iNaturalist.
You can also edit the metadata on a picture. I upload most of mine via batch. And I take them on a DSLR that doesn't have GPS or battery.
Right.
When I put them into Lightroom, I do a batch edit. I know exactly where I took them because I save each file. Save them in a group of what was located. And batch edit the metadata to include the location. And then when you put that into iNaturalist, it will automatically pull that information in.
Yeah. So we're starting to get into the weeds there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to stay out of the weeds as much as we can. Thank you for sharing that, though. The whole batch editing you were talking about is a whole nother level for really experienced scientists. Right. Right. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, because I have my camera doesn't record anything. So no location data. So when I upload my pictures, I have to know where I took the picture and go find it on the world map. Which is, I used to go do that all the time. Now I can't seem to do it as well. So now we're going to take a picture on iNaturalist with the phone. To take my picture, again, if I want to take another picture, I just click on the box and it takes me back to my camera or back to those choices. Then once I've got the photographs I want, I'm going to ask it, what did you see? Now this is where the artificial intelligence comes in. And it's going to give me suggestions. Okay, it's going to say, we're pretty sure it's in this genus. And then below that, it says, here are our top 10 species suggestions. This is where you kind of have to make a choice. Okay, and if you don't know the species, just pick the genus, pick the most generic thing they gave you. Provides a holder for you. If you know what species it is, then pick the species. So I happen to know that on this one, it was a Texas live oak. I went ahead and chose that. But again, it gives you suggestions, so keep that in mind all the way through. So then you notice the date and time are there, and then there's the location information. This is the same tree. You'll notice that one of them for location says Cibolo Nature Center and Farm, and the other one says Fair Oaks. Cibolo Nature Center and Farm is in Bernie, not Fair Oaks. So then I looked at the latitude and longitude, and they were basically the same. So it's picking up different satellites. That's how I can explain it. And so sometimes it will suggest a place that isn't where you are, but it might be close by. Okay, so just so you know that there's a little movement around there. The other thing is that you'll notice that it says ACC accuracy. And for our purposes, when you're documenting something, we want it to be as accurate as we can be in terms of that location. So that we like to have it under 500 meters, which is, I think, around 260 feet. That helps. I think it's something, the conversion is something like that. Because if it gets much farther out there, then we can't really pinpoint exactly very well the location of that particular observation. If you're wondering if you want to check that location, you can click on that and you can open up a map that's either a satellite. You can choose satellite or you can choose a standard map. You can take your finger and your thumb, you can pinch it together, spread it out, move it around, and put that center point right where it is. And then hit save or get that check mark up there at the top. Then we have geoprivacy. This is one that a lot of people are very interested in. The default is open, so that means everybody can see not only your image or hear or see the sound, they'll actually see the actual location on a map before that was documented, right? But let's say again, you don't want necessarily to show the exact location. You want to share the information maybe with us, but not with the general public. There are people out there that steal turtles and take things off the landscape and sell them on black markets that are illegal, so that's a concern. So open means everybody can see the coordinates on your observation. Obscured is they draw a box that's 22 by 22 kilometers, they put a random dot in there. For some people, that's good enough, for others, that's not good enough. So you can also choose private, and that's where the coordinates are hidden from everybody. But let's say you took a picture of a Texas horned lizard and you put private, but you submitted it to our Hertz of Texas project. Because you were, the only way to get that into our project is to join that project. And in joining that project, you're saying, I'm okay with sharing the locational data. So I, as a curator, or Wendy as a curator, could see the actual location, but the general public could not. That makes sense? Yes, sir.
Do you have a recommendation based on if we do come across something odd that we do obscure it just for safety of that species?
Yeah, I mean, you know, things like box turtles, Texas tortoises, things that people could come out and pick up and steal. Certainly that's a consideration that you can do. Yeah. Yeah. That's,
Last fire where you scared all barrel cactuses. Looking at ones that take them.
barrel cactuses often get dug up and carted off to people's homes or they sell it. So there are people out there doing that kind of stuff, so that is a concern. You know, people will do anything these days, I guess. And then finally, the last one, one of the last ones to look at is captive or cultivated. So tomorrow we're going to be outside, we're taking pictures out in the woods, everything out there presumably is wild. But let's say we went out into the parking lot here and we saw something, we took a picture of it that's been obviously planted, that would be cultivated. Okay, so you just mark cultivated.
You want pictures of that too?
It's up to you.
Does-
We won't use those kind of things now.
You just say
Wild stuff, yeah.
What if it's a wild insect in your backyard?
Go for it. Go for it. Go for it. So here's the tricky part. I grow a lot of native plants in my yard, but I put them all there. So I take pictures of them because I'm documenting for my home project, but I put them all as cultivated. The problem when you put cultivated is nobody goes and verifies it for you. They're not interested, even if it's native. And yeah, that's generally the rule. Unwritten. Unwritten. They just, yeah, if it's wild, they'll look at it. If it's not wild, they won't look at it. A lot of people won't look at it. Yes, sir.
Say, what if, okay, a roadside project
Yeah.
you're working on, and we know textile has seeded bluebonnet,
Right.
paintbrush, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, where does that?
Well, that it becomes
I
kind of,
was reading the details on it the other day. I'm doing a similar class.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks. So I'm like, okay, what do I tell people?
it becomes kind of comes down to, like, for example, I take a lot of pictures on the roadsides of wildflowers, exactly what you're talking about. I put them all as, I leave them all as wild because they're out there,
Yeah.
you know, and the fact of the matter is, all the bluebonnets, how many of those were planted generations of bluebonnets ago? When does it become wild? And my point is, like with my yard, some of my wildflowers are now going, you know, they're dropping seeds in new places where I didn't plant. So am I gonna call those wild or not? And I'm not, in my case, because my yard is surrounded by other homes that have no wildflowers. Probably haven't been a wildflower in my neighborhood other than what I put in years. So any of the offspring, I'm still gonna call cultivated. So it kind of comes down to a choice you gotta kind of make based on the best information you have. That's a really good point. And yes, so when does something become wild once when it was originally cultivated in a particular spot? So anyway, and then finally there's projects, and there's all kinds of projects. You can join projects, you can create projects. When you click on projects, these are going to be projects that you become involved with. The projects at the top are called traditional projects, and you'll notice there's a toggle switch next to each one of them. You actually have to pick that project and slide that toggle over in order for that object to go into that project. But all the projects below that are collection projects. So as long as you're standing, let's say this was a project area, you took a picture of something here and it's a collection project, you don't have to do anything. Take the picture, upload it, and it goes straight into that project automatically. As long as you're within the boundary of the place that project is set up for.
Cause it does.
It does, because you set it up. Somebody set that project. In order to set up a project, you have to have a place. You have to have a boundary for that project. So for my house, I have a boundary around my property line. But anything I take with inside that automatically goes in that project. I don't have to do it. So
Picking up by the location.
yes, picking it up by the location, yes.
Okay, so we don't have to connect with project in?
We have to, because there's a toggle switch right next to
Right.
ours. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the easiest way to tell. If there's no toggle switch, that means it's going in. If there's a toggle, you have to turn that toggle.
Exactly. You have to turn the toggle on. And the other thing is, so if you go and take an observation, if you went onto your website and start looking at your observations, you'd probably find that a lot of your observations are in projects you know nothing about. Because they had a boundary drawn within that area where you were standing and took the picture or recorded the sound. All of a sudden, you're just already contributing to other projects. So there's a project, Butterflies of Texas, or Lepidoptera of Texas. You can join it if you want to, but it's an open-ended project, and the whole boundary is, the state of Texas. If you take a picture of a Lepidoptera in Texas, it's going into that project. Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
right,
yes,
how that works is whoever's managing the project can set that boundary up. That way, anything can come into that. But like for Adopt-A-Loop, they do not have a boundary set up like that because it's the whole state,
Right.
basically. So there's no boundary, that you still have to toggle to get the site.
yes,
So
you have to
that's-
select the site,
That's
exactly.
why it's toggled.
In essence, we would have to have a project set up for each individual site for that.
Correct,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
which could be a real challenge, yes,
I've been wandering around in my yard taking all kinds of pictures.
okay,
If I go back now and set a project that's my yard,
yep,
will it move those into there?
yep, it will, yeah, if you create a new project. So, yeah, it will, it'll automatically, once you create a project, if there are old observations within that boundary, it's gonna pull them in.
You can also set the dates.
Yeah, you can set dates, that's right, you can have it be open-ended, exactly, yep, yes, ma'am. Yes, I just set one up. A couple of days ago. Oh, if you're gonna see, you should, if I completely screw up this presentation, you should see it at the end. Okay. But it's George Mitchell Nature Preserve, or George Mitchell Preserve is the project. I couldn't exactly tell the boundaries, so I think I encompassed most of it. We'll see. You look at it. All right, so then you're done, you're shared. Now, this took us approximately 20 minutes to explain. It takes about a minute to actually do. Okay, from the time you take the picture, record the sound, to the time you hit share. Okay, so just so you all know. All right, now, what do we have a picture of?
Black bears.
Somebody's seen this presentation before. Said that. She's seen this before. We gotta get a new picture.
Yeah.
So obviously those are three black vultures. I do not know what the first choice of this was, but the alternate suggestions were those. The bison is the one I like the best. The bear disagrees. So, and in fact, the very first workshop I ever did with our former colleague Tanya, a lady was taking a picture of a shelf mushroom on a rotting log. The first choice came back river otter. I should have screenshotted that. So again, it is not 100% perfect. That's, you just got to accept that. And these are all suggestions. Obviously. Suggestions. No, but again, I don't know what the first recommendation was. She cut that out of this. To make a point.
So they have a new toggle switch that can prevent that now. If you scroll down and you can turn on a toggle that says only objects in my specific.
But you know what? My iPhone does not have that.
It does.
No. What are you using, an
It's on,
iPhone?
it's on an iPhone.
Yeah, my iPhone, I looked at that for that the other day, and it was not on my
You have to
account.
scroll way down.
Oh, I did, not there. Underneath the little symbol, right? You open up settings, yeah, not there. I don't know if I need to update mine or something. I'll show it to you.
Yeah, I'll shoot.
But if I can find, if it's there, I missed it. I'm teaching this stuff, I should know that. Okay, so a few photography tips. Take up close-up pictures, get as close as you can. One of the hardest things to get people to understand is that we all take a lot of really bad pictures. Right? So, and when things don't get identified, we're like, well, why can't you identify it? Well, because it's so blurry, you can't tell if it's, what it is. I used, and tomorrow, if you like, I brought some of these things called Zenbos. They're a 15 power magnifier that you attach to your phone. And you can take amazing close-up pictures of small insects and small plants and things like that. Okay, so that's a really helpful device when you're doing the tiny things out in the natural world. Because, for example, those are spice bush flowers. And each flower is about 2.5 to 3 millimeters long. I was able to get nice and close. I'll hold this for a while because I see people taking a picture of it. And again, I think I've got 10 that we can share tomorrow. When you take pictures, make sure you get as close as you can to the flower. Zoom it in if you have to. Then make sure you take more than one picture. A lot of plants look a lot alike. There's species that are very, very, very similar. So notice that I also put my hands in there. Now I have a reference point for size. Okay. And to make sure you get a picture when it's a flower of the leaves, how the leaves are arranged, the approximate size, things like that. And then the entire plant. Now the artificial intelligence is only going to use the one photograph you choose as the default, try to identify it. But the nice thing is you can change, if you don't get satisfaction, you can go and change the photograph to a new default photo. If you have multiple photos, and then ask it again, and you might get a better choice. Okay. That sometimes can work. When you're taking pictures of, yes, completely. Photographing leaves, the leaf arrangement is very important to think about a taxonomic key on plant identification. So think about that, the backside of the leaves, because of the hairiness or lack thereof. If you find fruit, obviously photograph that. If you find tendrils or prickles or thorns, things like that, those are all helpful. And then with insects, with invertebrates, now I'll tell you that these two pictures were taken with a macro lens on a camera. However, I was within about 4 inches of those two insects. Okay, and so the reason I'm showing these pictures is you can get close to insects if you take your time and you're patient. Now, a dragonfly has, 30,000 little facets in each eye. So it sees movement pretty quickly. But these guys are often territorial. So they use the same perch over and over and over again as they're hunting. So if you can figure out what perch they're using, once they fly off the perch, get closer to it, freeze, let them come back. It's like you're stalking them. Okay? And you can get pretty close to them sometimes. With butterflies, of course, a lot of them, they have the wings on top. The dorsal surface is different from the ventral surface. So if you can get multiple pictures of them, that sometimes helps. With other insects, getting various pictures of the side and the top can be helpful. With spiders, I usually take a picture of the dorsal surface as opposed to the underside where you see the 8 legs attached. When you take pictures of birds, this was taken with a macro lens from about 100 yards away. If I were iNaturalist artificial intelligence, I might be looking to identify all the sticks. Right? Because the bird is pretty far away. So I can zoom that in later, and then it will identify that as a sage bee. It's not a picture I'm going to hang on the wall, but it's still documenting a bird that is pretty unusual where I happen to find that bird. And then with other animals, you can sometimes silhouettes work, and then if you get multiple species, make sure that you can crop those and have 2 observations. One of the snow goose on the left and one of the Ross's goose on the right, for example. Okay. Because otherwise, I don't know what iNaturalist would do with that. Yeah, it probably lists both choices. You'd have to choose which one you have there. And if you take pictures of the bird nests, make sure they got eggs in them. Most of the time, unless it's an eagle's nest, not really obvious and huge. A lot of times just a nest of grasses and sticks is not going to be pretty easy to identify with eggs. It helps. And then remember that sounds count as well, both for herps and for birds. As do tracks and roadkill. There are actually roadkill projects out there. tracking roadkill, and they actually can use those in sometimes in determining where they should put a wildlife crossover place or underpass or whatever. So it can be very valuable. Now, here's what it does and doesn't do. It measures species richness. It measures what's there. It does not measure population numbers or health. It does not measure absence. The phone app is simply a data collection tool. And the iNaturalist webpage is where there's all kinds of cool stuff. And now, there's another thing that happens that it happens in iNaturalist. When 2/3 of the people that look at your photograph agree on the identification, it becomes what's known as research grade. And so that's just the designation of a higher quality record. And so when we're doing our curating on projects, one of the first things we look at is it research grade or not? We're still going to look at the image, but that's our first kind of cutoff and say, if it's not research grade, we're going to bypass it on the first pass. So we're going to focus on research grade. So again, it's 2/3 of the people that look at it, that becomes research grade, and then it's a little more trusted in terms of the identification. Okay, it is getting close to 8 o'clock. Everybody okay, or are you falling asleep? We've had some really interesting things going on tonight. What do you want to do? You tell me.
Do we need to be out at 8 or is there?
I'm gonna try to push through this fairly easy. Of course, you go to the website, go to iNaturalist.org, and that'll take you, you can log in, you have your own webpage in iNaturalist, okay? You can log in up there, type in your information, and there's your webpage. Well, it's actually mine, but you know, it's the same with the different thing. So there's 2 sets of drop downs up here, the one on the top and that one underneath my name. Very quickly, if we hit explore, it's going to show you all the observations in the world. Okay, where everything is, lots of information. You can also then specify you want just Texas and get that information. You can also, you can go into the county and you can actually type in a species and it'll give you those observations for that location. You can get as specific as you want when you use the Explore tab. Then in terms of the observation tab, there's one up for your account and one for general. It's the same thing. So you can tap on either one of those. It'll take you to all of your observations. So you can see them. You also, if you see that tab there, it says community. If you hit the drop down, you can go search for other iNaturalist users. Under people, you can also look at the forum. The iNat forum is where people go on and have all these long, detailed discussions about various aspects of iNaturalist. I should probably spend more time there. But they're getting to some pretty heavy discussions there. But it's a good place to ask questions of other iNaturalist users. Also underneath that tab, you can select projects, so you go search for a project. So if your deal is butterflies, you can go type in butterfly under search, and it will list all of the projects of butterflies across the globe. But you could also do butterfly Texas, and that would limit your choices. I think right now there's close to 3,000 butterfly projects globally. Okay. There's not that many in Texas, so that's kind of nice. You can also create your own project. We're not going to go into that tonight, but you can start your own project as well. When you select on identify, this is where all of the things that have not been identified are found. And if you have an expertise and you want to sit down with your field guides one night and look at pictures and help other people get their observations to research grade, you can do that. One thing I will tell you is, again, there's a lot of bad pictures on there.
That's where you'll find most of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Becomes very frustrating very quickly. But if you are trying to learn and you have some idea of what things are, you can pull out your field guides, you know, on a Saturday night when you got nothing else going on, can't sleep, and you can just geek out on them. Yes, rabbit holes are numerous on this page. Yes. Yes.
Does that count?
Yes.
Chapter, but.
Yeah, chapters, So there's the general rules that we wrote. And then there's what the chapters decide to do with those rules. So debate it at your chapter level. And then email Michelle.
It's 0.25 is what you can get.
So, I think it's just for uploading the observations. But I think if you're gonna do this, I think you can count that.
Yeah, but if you're identifying stuff from Iowa,
Yeah.
doesn't count.
That's part of it. And then, but then regular iNaturalist, you told me you can only do 0.25.
If it's a project in Texas, you can do any amount of hours.
Yeah, but she told me if you're just out there doing just iNaturalist, then it's 0.25.
You can't do it, it's just general, but like the adopt a loop, you can go in and you can ID. All the, and it's all, you can use it for service hours for the.
It's something that will never have a clean definition, probably.
So for our purposes, hour for hour, as long as it's a project in Texas.
Yes,
Okay.
and if you go into.
And some chapters will say if it's within our service area. So they'll limit it to that as well.
If I can, backyard bird county, you spend so many hours each day looking at the birds and documenting all that, and then you didn't put that in as time.
Yeah. But it does eventually boil down to what the chapter says. So, I'm not taking on that responsibility. Nice try. Now, under community, you can go, or no, let's see, is this community? No, this is under more. You can find all of these different things here. There's the help. Right there, it's a great place to go if you have questions about iNaturalist. It's got all kinds of stuff. I mean, it really is a very, very well done place. You can also find taxing info where you can actually go and search for a specific species that you're looking for, and you can pull them up through this. I even use this if I'm doing a presentation and I don't have a photograph of a particular critter. I can go look for this, and I can look at the copyright information. If it says it can be used, then I can pull that and use that in my presentation with a photo credit. And some photographers that put stuff on there don't want their stuff shared at all, but a lot of people will allow that to be used with a photo credit, which is kind of nice. And then under places, this is where you could go and find a place. You can also add a place where you could create a place so you could start a project. Just keep in mind that all projects have to have a place. But you can have a place and not set up a project, and you can go find that place here, and it will show you all the observations underneath that place. Okay. And then down there at the end, you have this little thing right here where your picture is. This is where I use it all the time. I go click on dashboard, it takes me back to the first page, regardless of where I am on the web page. And here you have a profile page. Now, how many of you created your account on your phone? How many of you have never checked to see what the time zone is? So here's your assignment before you come to the BioBlitz tomorrow. You have to go to your web page. Okay, so here you go. You log in, iNaturalist.org, log in. You go to profile. Go back, click on profile. You open it up, it says edit account settings and profile. Click on that. And then you click on account. And it will take you to this screen right here. The default is Hawaii time. So if you've never done it, you're on Hawaii time. So for tomorrow's BioBlitz, because it's a timed event, you got to change that to center or check and make sure it's Central Standard Time where your observations won't go into that project. Okay. So just keep that in mind. If you've ever been on a BioBlitz, and you wonder why your things aren't going in there, because the time is off. Okay. So before tomorrow, if you're coming, check on it. Okay. That's your assignment. All right, then of course you have observations, you can go look at that, you can look at the IDs that you've done. You can also go look at the projects that you have searched for. One of the weird things about the projects is if somebody looks at your map, it'll tell them where you've been traveling. So I've been out in the Northeast visiting my daughter. I've been to Iowa to visit my family. I've been to the mountains to see my daughter. And then most of my observations are in Texas. Which is kind of creepy because there was somebody that I was doing a program for recently. You go, hey, I see you were in Iowa. Wow, I didn't know that person from Adam. But they followed me on this and they could tell where I've been most recently, which is, a little weird. Not saying that was a stalker or anything, but, and by the way, you can display your observations by map, by grid, or by list. So there's just different ways to present your observations. Now let's talk projects. So projects like we're doing tomorrow is called a bio event. And basically what that is a timed event, a specific location. What we're trying to do is document everything that we can find, everything. To give a picture, if you will, of everything that's going on there at that date and time. Okay? That makes sense? You're doing basically an inventory within a given time frame. And so that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. An example of a statewide bio list is the Texas pollinator bio list we do each year through PPWD. And you can have a site-based, this is the wrong, I'm just gonna stew about this all night. But you can have a site-based collection project where it's that specific location. You can also have a taxa-specific collection project where you're only focused on one group of species. Okay? And you can set up a project for your yard. I set this up. By the way, I'm at 537 species after my mopping night. That jacks it up quite quickly. I set this up because I started restoring my yard to a more natural yard, and I wanted to know, what am I putting in? And then I want to know who's coming as a result of that. And my yard is less than 1/4 of an acre. That also includes a house, a garage, a shed, greenhouse, and a lot of rocks on our walk through the yard. So very little green space. And I'm almost 540 species in that tiny little area just using native plants. Now granted, about 120 of those are native plant species, but the insects and the birds and stuff that come when you start to do that is amazing. And why not track it? Right? I also use this every year when the first time I see a species bloom, I take a picture of that. So over time, I'll be able to see, are they blooming earlier, later, not blooming at all, that kind of thing, or are they disappearing? Or are new things coming into the yard that I didn't even put there? So, just to kind of wrap up, you can follow us at both on our Facebook page and on Instagram. And we do a live event every once in a while. Some of you may have joined us in the past. We introduced Wendy with a live event out of Austin. And tomorrow we may actually go live at the Bio Blitz and highlight y'all. We won't force you to be on camera, but we'll see how that goes, what kind of signal we have and all that good stuff. So anyway, it's a great way to learn more about the natural world through our web pages. I apologize if this is frustrating. I will not get over this. That's my email. If you add Wendy Anderson to that, it's her email. And your email or your username on iNaturalist is
Wendelia.
When
It's called Wendelia. And my name is Wendy, so I just put it together, Wendelia.
yes. It is pretty cool, and I picked up on that, by the way. Really heard about that. And mine is just Craig Hensley. One word. Anyway, I apologize for all of the fun we've had tonight. Some of it out of my control, some of it in my control, and clearly don't know what happened. But just one of those times, right?
Very good.